Hi Maisie, I just watched Nosferatu and I kind of enjoyed it. Let's talk about it. The 2024 Nosferatu is directed by Robert Eggers. Eggers? I think it's Eggers. And it stars Lily Rose Depp, Nicholas Hoult, Bill Skarsgård, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Willem Dafoe, Emma Corrin, Ralph Ineson, and a bunch more people. Some background with Nosferatu. The original one came out in, I believe, 1922. Basically, it's Dracula. It's just Dracula. They just changed some of the names. To my knowledge, there are now 3 major versions of Nosferatu. I haven't seen it until after I watched 2024. I just know roughly about it. Nosferatu the Vampire, 1979, directed by Werner Herzog. I always butcher that name. That one is also all right. The 2024 Nosferatu is the first one that I've actually sat down to watch. I knew that it was kind of a ripoff, quote, quote, of Dracula. I was not prepared for how close to Dracula it is. But before we get into that, let's start with some positives. I really enjoy the crap out of this movie. This movie looks great. The dialogue is fantastic. The sets, mwah. The costumes, mwah. The creature effects, super, super good. Unlike the Wolfman. Count Orlok, or as you're probably knowing him as Nosferatu, he's a big freaky dude. And Bill Skarsgård does this wonderful voice. I'm sure you've heard the TikToks.
You must bounce on it. Crazy style.
It's so over exaggerated. I love it. The music, oh my goodness. There's also some really cool effects things that they do with this movie. This isn't a jump scare movie. It's literally gothic horror at its finest. So if I loved it that much, why do I struggle to give it like a 5 out of 5 stars, right? Well, like I said, it was a ripoff, quote, quote, of Dracula. I really didn't know how much, and that became very evident watching Nosferatu. One of my favorite movies ever is Bram Stoker's Dracula, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, who also directed the Godfather movies. That one stars Gary Oldman, Keanu Reeves, Winona Ryder, Anthony Hopkins. That movie's freaking great. It's a giant love letter to cinema, the Dracula story, the history of the Dracula movies. It's wonderful. I don't think that there's a better Dracula movie. That might be blasphemy to my dad, but we'll see. Nosferatu it's literally Dracula with the names changed. And I'm not even exaggerating that. I was so in love with this movie and the horror and the dread that you feel. I was really wrapped up in all of that. And then there would be a major story beat that would happen. And I would immediately get pulled out of the movie and think, oh yeah, this is just Dracula. Oh yeah, this is just Dracula. And that would repeat several times in the movie where I would get reinvested, reignited into like what I'm supposed to be feeling, what I'm supposed to be thinking while watching this movie. And then I get pulled out again and I'm like, oh yeah, this is just Dracula. I've already had a few conversations where they're like, that's the point. It is Dracula. It's just, there's a little bit of difference. And it's like, if you're gonna make a movie this high quality and this great, and it's so close to Dracula already, why not just remake Dracula? Why not? Why not? In my mind, there's nothing that really justifies this version of Nosferatu like existing, like at all. I've described it a few ways to a few different friends, but the one I like to use the most is Joker. If you've seen the movie Joker, you know that it doesn't shy away from the fact that it's heavily inspired by some movies, right? Taxi Driver, The King of Comedy, other Scorsese films, right? But that's the thing with Joker. It's taking inspiration from those movies, mixing them together, throwing in a DC Comics IP, and putting out something that's different, right? You can still say, oh, it's just Taxi Driver, oh, it's just The King of Comedy, but it's those things combined. There's something new out of there. Nosferatu is a remake of Nosferatu, but it's also a ripoff of Dracula. Nothing else really goes into the movie. It's just, okay, let's take Nosferatu, let's turn up the gothic to Dracula levels. That's where I'm at with this movie. I keep going back and forth, because on one hand, I would easily give this movie 5 stars. I would easily do that, right? But I keep getting pulled out of the movie when I watch it, because I'm like, it's Dracula. And I really, that might just be a bias I have. That might just be because I'm so familiar with Dracula's story. I really love the Francis Ford Coppola Dracula movie. I admit there could be bias. I don't know. If you're not as familiar with the Dracula story, Nosferatu might be a super big thing for you. If so, I envy that, because that could easily be a 5-star experience. I just keep reminding myself it's just Dracula with the names changed. So, Maisie, should you go watch this movie in a theater? Absolutely you should. Absolutely 100% you should go watch this in a theater. It's not a jump scare movie, so don't go in thinking it's like your modern day horror movie, right? It fills you with dread. It makes you feel icky. It's not a fun movie. It is just gothic horror at its finest. So yeah, check that movie out in a theater. Don't wait for streaming. Please go get the theatrical experience. And hopefully you can avoid a showing where people are laughing. You could easily laugh at parts of this movie. I unfortunately had an auditorium with like maybe 4 people max, including myself, and people were laughing at some parts of it. I get it, but you know, theater etiquette. So anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Once more, I don't super care. I'm kidding. I actually really love having discussions about movies. I could do that all day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you at the movies.